Hello everybody, Luke Schulte, Field Agronomist for Beck's Hybrids. I'm in Northwest Ohio, Van Wert County. Today is June 11th, and evaluating some corn that was planted on May the 3rd into very good field conditions. But I also know that this field underwent a lot of water. Very persistently wet conditions throughout the middle of May, and I'm starting to try to get a feel for just how healthy is this plant, particularly the vascular tissue and the overall root system of the plant. As you can see from the area in which I'm standing, you can see the glossiness of the ground, the cracked ground. While we're dry now, this field in this particular spot of the field had a good bit of water laying just a couple weeks ago. So I'm starting to evaluate as to what is the health of this and condition of this crop as we head into the yield determining stages of determining the rows round. And what I'm particularly looking at is this bottom leaf as I zero in where my index finger is at. And you can see that rounded leaf is kind of senesced. It's actually kind of died off. And at this point in the year, we usually don't see these. This is V5, V6 corn. We usually don't see that rounded leaf actually senesced quite that far along, which is one of the indicators, while not 100%, one of the indications that perhaps we have some crown infection that's actually starting to occur. So I've dug up a plant. As I move over here, I've got my knife zeroed in here. I've dug up a plant and I'm pointing at the crown area of the plant. So this crown area sits on top of the root system and it's kind of discolored. We'd really like the crown area to be the same color as this vascular tissue up here at the tip of my knife. More that greenish, yellowish look here at the growing point. But as I move down to the crown, it's kind of discolored. It's kind of gray and brown, which is an indication that during this really wet conditions there in mid-May, that had an impact, and it actually brought in some of those Pythium fusarium species that cause this crown infection to occur. Now, it's impossible to know for certain without digging a lot of plants, but trying to get an indication of what will the impact be by looking at that lower leaf, you can start to get an idea, and particularly those products that some are more susceptible than others, that are more vulnerable to that early wet crown infection. Now, this plant won't die. This infection will also not go away. So what will happen in all likelihood is this crown infection that my knife is pointed to will continue to persist, and it will continue to stay within that vascular tissue. And if left untreated, it will basically change this corn from 109-day corn into about 102-day corn. Instead of this corn actually more naturally maturing and physically maturing, it will end up prematurely dying. Again, it'll change that 109-day corn into, say, like 101, 102, 103-day corn, which will result in typically smaller ears and definitely not maximizing the genetic potential of this particular hybrid. Now, this is one thing that in Ohio we see, unfortunately, a little more commonly. No products are particularly immune to this. Now, some products are particularly better than others, and some are more susceptible than others. And so we want to know which products those are. And so we also wanted to know what can we look for to help remedy and help to minimize the effects of this premature death and the reduced ear size and potentially, stalk lodging. So last year in PFR, we evaluated different fungicides. And rather than waiting until post-tassel, we looked at could a fungicide be applied, say in that V5 to V7 time frame, and be effective at not eliminating crown rot, but minimizing the effects and not allowing this particular disease to fester. And so what we found is products that applied at full rates, combination fungicides, so multiple modes of action applied at full rates, were highly effective at minimizing the effects of this crown infection and helping that plant to stay alive during the grain fill process and keeping that stay green within that plant. So while I know this is not necessarily a wanted practice or a practice that most farmers were looking forward to, a fungicide applied around V5 to V7 on these persistently wet fields, and the hybrids that are a little more vulnerable can help to reduce the impacts that come and are the result of this crown infection that occurs very early and never goes away. So one thing to look at and one thing to consider as you're starting to dig plants and look at the overall health of the plant and determine what are your next management steps. Perhaps if you see this discoloration, you might consider a fungicide in that V5 to V7 time frame. So that's what we're seeing in the field. But if you got any questions, feel free to reach out to myself or one of your Beck's representatives. Have a good day.